Chapter 1. The Philosophy of Ryan Baker. Ryan Baker had a smile that could disarm a parking ticket officer, and he wore it like armor. At 28, he was the kind of man who could walk into a room and make it lighter without even trying. People liked him. Dogs liked him. Even the cranky old man at the hardware store liked him, and that was saying something. Ryan liked life. He liked mornings that smelled like coffee and evenings that hummed with possibility. He liked jokes that made people snort laugh and conversations that didn't take themselves too seriously. What he didn't like, what he had zero interest in, was marriage. Not because he hated women. Far from it. Ryan adored women. He admired their strength, their humor, their ability to turn a bad day into something bearable with a single smile. But trust? That was a currency he didn't spend lightly. Not after what he'd seen. His mother had taught him that lesson, though not in the way mothers usually teach things. Ryan had been 17 when his parents' marriage detonated like a poorly wired firework. His father, a good man who worked hard and paid bills on time, had been blindsided. His mother cheated, kicked him out, and then, because irony loves company, made him keep paying for the house he no longer lived in. Ryan remembered the look on his dad's face when he signed those checks. It wasn't anger. It was defeat. And Ryan had sworn then and there, never him. Never. So here he was, a decade later, happy and single, and happy because he was single. He wasn't bitter. He wasn't angry. He was practical. Marriage, in his eyes, was financial Russian roulette, and he wasn't about to pull the trigger. Saturday afternoon found Ryan at his mother's house, sitting at the kitchen table while she and her friends held court over steaming mugs of coffee. They were in full swing, dissecting men like frogs in a high school biology class. And then he had the nerve to say he needed space. One of them huffed, punctuating the word with air quotes. Ryan smiled into his cup. He didn't mind their rants. People vent. It wasn't personal. Besides, he agreed, some men were trash. Some women too. Most people, Ryan figured, were just trying to get through the day without losing their reason to live. So Ryan, his mother's friend Gloria said, leaning forward with a grin that spelled trouble. When are you going to settle down and get married? Ryan burst out laughing. Not a polite chuckle. A full-bodied, head-thrown-back laugh that startled the cat off the counter. Oh, honey, Gloria said, blinking. What's so funny? When Ryan finally caught his breath, he grinned. I'm not getting married. The table went silent, like someone had hit the mute button. His mother frowned. Why not? Ryan shrugged. Because it's financial suicide for men with the laws the way they are. And don't even get me started on losing your kids through no fault of your own. No thank you. Gloria opened her mouth, but Ryan held up a hand. Look, I'm not saying marriage is bad for everyone. I'm saying it's bad for me. I've got better things to do than give someone half of everything I worked for because they decide they're not happy. His mother's lips thinned. Ryan, you're not considering what marriage brings to a man's life. Ryan laughed again, softer this time. He looked at her, not unkindly, and said, Mom, I love you. But the most important lesson you ever taught me was to never trust a woman, no matter how close you are to her. The silence that followed was heavy enough to bend the table legs. Ryan stood, setting his cup in the sink. I'm not trying to hurt you, he said gently. But I was there. I watched what happened to Dad. I'm not giving anyone a chance to do that to me. He kissed his mother's cheek, smiled at the stunned faces around the table, and headed for the door. Outside, the winter air bit at his cheeks, but Ryan felt nothing but calm. It was just another day closer to the next one, and he had work to catch up on. Chapter 2. A chance encounter. Ryan wasn't in a hurry to get home. The sky was a pale winter blue, the kind that made you feel like the world was holding its breath. He drove with one hand on the wheel, humming along to a classic rock station, until the scent of roasted coffee beans drifting from a corner cafe caught his attention. He wasn't much of a coffee snob, but he appreciated a good cup, and the place looked inviting, warm light spilling through frosted windows like a promise. He parked, stepped inside, and was greeted by the hiss of an espresso machine and the low murmur of conversation. The cafe was cozy, all mismatched chairs and chalkboard menus, the kind of place where people wrote novels or pretended to. Ryan ordered a black coffee, simple, no nonsense, and scanned the room for a seat. That's when he saw her. She was sitting at a small table near the window, laptop open, fingers flying across the keyboard like they were late for a train. Her hair was a tumble of chestnut waves, and she wore a sweater that looked like it had been stolen from a giant, soft, oversized, and somehow stylish. There was a concentration on her face that made Ryan pause. Not because she was beautiful, though she was, but because she looked alive, focused, like the world outside didn't exist. Ryan shook himself. He wasn't here to people watch. He found an empty table, sat down, and took a sip of his coffee. Bitter, hot, perfect. Excuse me, a voice said. Ryan looked up, and there she was, sweater girl, standing at his table with a smile that could melt glaciers. Would you mind watching my stuff for a minute? She asked, gesturing to her laptop and bag. I need to grab another drink. Ryan blinked. Sure. Thanks. She flashed him a grin and disappeared toward the counter. Ryan stared at her table like it was a bomb he'd been asked to defuse. He wasn't used to strangers trusting him with their things. Then again, he didn't look like the type to run off with a laptop. He looked like the type who'd help you move a couch and crack jokes while doing it. She returned a minute later, carrying a steaming mug. "You're a lifesaver," she said, sliding back into her chair. "I was starting to think my coffee addiction was going to cost me my entire manuscript." Ryan raised an eyebrow. "Manuscript?" She nodded, eyes bright. "Romantic comedy. Working title, Love in Low Places." Ryan chuckled. "Sounds optimistic." "Optimistic?" She tilted her head, amused. "What, you don't believe in love?" Ryan smiled, slow and easy. "I believe in love. I just don't believe in marriage." Her eyebrows shot up. "That's oddly specific." Ryan shrugged. "Marriage is a bad investment. Love? Sure. Love's great. But marriage? No thanks." She laughed. A warm, genuine sound that made Ryan's chest feel lighter than it had 5 minutes ago. "Wow, you sound like my editor. Except he's bitter because his ex took the dog." Ryan grinned. "Dogs are worth fighting for." "Exactly." She pointed at him like he'd just passed a test. "See? You get it." Ryan leaned back in his chair, curious despite himself. "So, you write romantic comedies?" "Yep." She sipped her coffee, eyes dancing. "Which means I spend my days inventing meet-cuties and happy endings while my own love life is a dumpster fire." Ryan chuckled. "That's ironic. Tell me about it." She closed her laptop with a sigh. "Anyway, thanks for guarding my stuff. I owe you one." Ryan waved a hand. "No problem." She hesitated, then smiled again. "I'm Harper, by the way." "Ryan." "Nice to meet you, Ryan." She stood, slinging her bag over her shoulder. "Maybe I'll see you around." And just like that, she was gone. Out the door and into the pale blue afternoon, leaving Ryan staring at his coffee like it had answers. He didn't believe in fate. He didn't believe in signs. But as he sat there, the echo of her laughter still warm in his ears, Ryan couldn't help thinking. Maybe life had just thrown him a curveball. Chapter 3. The unexpected invitation. Ryan wasn't thinking about Harper when he walked into the community center that Thursday evening. Okay, maybe he was just a little. Her laugh had been playing on repeat in his head like a catchy song you can't shake. But he wasn't here for romance. He was here because his buddy Mark had begged him to join the town's charity auction committee. And Ryan had a hard time saying no to people who used phrases like, "for the kids." The place was buzzing with activity. Tables stacked with donated items, volunteers arranging decorations, and a whiteboard covered in scribbles that looked like a conspiracy theorist's dream. Ryan rolled up his sleeves and got to work, hauling boxes and cracking jokes until the stress level in the room dropped a few notches. He was mid-laugh when he heard a voice behind him. "Ryan Baker?" He turned, and there she was, Harper. Same oversized sweater, different color. Same bright eyes, same smile that made the room feel warmer. "Well, if it isn't the coffee shop philosopher," she said, hands on her hips. "What are you doing here?" Ryan grinned. "Trying to look useful." "You?" "Same." She gestured toward a table piled with gift baskets. "I volunteered to help organize the auction. And maybe score some free snacks." Ryan chuckled. "Solid plan." She tilted her head, studying him like he was a puzzle. "So, Mr. Anti-Marriage, do you ever do anything social? Or is this a rare sighting?" Ryan smirked. "I'm social. I just don't do couple Y things." "Couple Y things?" Harper laughed. "You make it sound like a disease." Ryan shrugged. "Depends on who you ask." She shook her head, amused. "You're something else, Ryan Baker." Before he could reply, the event coordinator, a whirlwind of clipboards and stress, called out, "We need 2 more people for trivia night next week. It's for charity." Harper's eyes lit up. "Trivia? I'm in." Ryan raised an eyebrow. "Trivia? Like, answering questions about obscure facts?" "Exactly." She grinned. "Come on, it'll be fun." Ryan opened his mouth to decline, because trivia sounded dangerously close to organized fun. But Harper leaned in, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "Don't tell me you're afraid of losing." Ryan laughed. "Afraid? No. I just don't usually sign up for things that involve thinking under pressure." "Perfect," she said, clapping her hands. "You'll be my partner." Ryan blinked. "Wait, what?" "Next Thursday, 7 o'clock. Same place." She gave him a mischievous smile. "Don't bail on me, Ryan Baker. I'll hunt you down." And just like that, she was off, leaving Ryan standing there with a box in his hands and a grin he couldn't quite suppress. He told himself it was harmless. Just trivia. Just charity. Just one evening. But as he watched Harper laughing with another volunteer, Ryan had the distinct feeling that his carefully constructed walls had just developed a crack. Chapter 4. Sparks and sarcasm. Trivia night was louder than Ryan expected. The community center had transformed into a battlefield of brains. Tables lined up like trenches, teams armed with pens and confidence. A banner overhead read, "Trivia for charity. Win bragging rights and a basket of muffins." Ryan wasn't sure which was more motivating, the bragging rights or the muffins. He spotted Harper instantly. She was at the registration table, chatting with the coordinator, her laughter carrying across the room like music. Ryan told himself he wasn't looking for her. He told himself he was here because he'd promised. But when she turned and waved, that smile hit him like a fastball. "Ryan Baker," she called, striding over. "You showed up. I'm impressed." Ryan smirked. "I said I would." "Yeah. But you strike me as the type who'd fake a sudden emergency involving a sick goldfish." Ryan chuckled. "I don't own a goldfish." "Exactly. Which makes the excuse even better." She handed him a name tag that read Team Harper and Ryan. "Ready to dominate?" Ryan eyed the crowd. "Define dominate." "Win. Crush. Humiliate the competition." Her eyes sparkled. "Or at least not come in dead last." Ryan grinned. "That I can do." They found their table, and Harper immediately started arranging pens like they were weapons. Ryan leaned back, scanning the room. "So, what's your strategy?" "Answer questions correctly," she said, deadpan. Ryan laughed. "Brilliant. Why didn't I think of that?" The first round began. The host, a man with a voice like a game show announcer, fired off questions about history, science, and pop culture. Harper scribbled answers with lightning speed, occasionally tossing Ryan a question. "Capital of Iceland?" "Reykjavik," Ryan said without hesitation. Harper blinked. "Okay, Mr. Anti-Marriage knows geography." "Impressive." Ryan smirked. "I'm full of surprises." "Next question. Who wrote Pride and Prejudice?" Ryan hesitated. Charlotte Bronte." Harper gasped like he'd just kicked a puppy. "Jane Austen." "Oh my God, Ryan." Ryan winced. "Close enough. Close enough." Harper laughed so hard she nearly fell off her chair. "That's like saying a cat is close enough to a toaster." Ryan grinned. "Both sit on counters." She shook her head, still laughing. "You're ridiculous." Round after round, the banter flowed as easily as the coffee Harper kept refilling. Ryan found himself enjoying it, really enjoying it. Not just the game, but the way Harper teased without malice. The way her eyes lit up when she got an answer right. The way she leaned in when she laughed like she couldn't help it. By the final round, they were in third place, not bad for a guy who thought Jane Austen was a Bronte. The host announced the winners, and Harper clapped like they just won the Super Bowl. "Third place," she said, grinning at Ryan. "Not bad for someone who doesn't do couple Y things." Ryan chuckled. "Trivia isn't couple Y." "Oh, it is," Harper said, eyes twinkling. "Shared victory, mutual humiliation. It's practically foreplay." Ryan laughed, shaking his head. "You're something else." As the crowd dispersed, Harper turned to him, her expression mischievous. "So, Ryan Baker, what's your excuse for next Thursday?" Ryan raised an eyebrow. "Next Thursday. Game night. Same place. Unless you're afraid of losing again." Ryan smirked. "Afraid? No. I just don't usually sign up for things that involve thinking under pressure." "Perfect," she said, echoing her words from the auction night. "You'll fit right in." Ryan watched her walk away, her laughter trailing behind her like a ribbon. He told himself it was just trivia, just charity, just harmless fun. But deep down, Ryan knew something had shifted. And for the first time in a long time, he wasn't sure if that scared him or thrilled him. Chapter 5. The Bet. Ryan had never considered himself competitive, unless you counted fantasy football, where he'd once threatened to disown a friend over a bad trade. But trivia night had stirred something in him, something Harper seemed determined to poke like a bear with a stick. They were standing outside the community center, the cold air biting at their cheeks, when Harper turned to him with that mischievous glint in her eye. "You know," she said, pulling on her gloves, "for someone who claims to avoid couple Y things, you were pretty into that trivia game." Ryan smirked. "I was into winning. There's a difference." "Aha." She tilted her head, studying him like he was a science experiment. "Tell me something, Ryan Baker. When was your last date?" Ryan blinked. "Wow. Straight to the personal questions." "Answer the question." He shrugged. "A while ago." "How long is a while?" Ryan hesitated. "Long enough that the restaurant probably doesn't exist anymore." Harper laughed so hard she had to lean against the wall. "Oh my God. That's tragic." Ryan grinned. "It's not tragic. It's intentional." "Intentional?" She raised an eyebrow. "You're telling me you've sworn off dating?" Ryan nodded. "Pretty much." "Why?" "Because of your whole marriage is a scam philosophy." Ryan chuckled. "Partly, but mostly because I like my life the way it is. Simple. Drama-free." Harper crossed her arms, her smile turning sly. "You know what I think?" Ryan braced himself. "What?" "I think you're scared." Ryan laughed. "Scared? Of what?" "Of liking someone." She stepped closer, her voice teasing. "Of realizing that maybe, just maybe, you're wrong." Ryan shook his head, amused. "I'm not wrong." "Prove it." Her eyes sparkled like a dare. "3 dates. With me." Ryan blinked. "Wait, what?" "3 dates," Harper repeated, grinning. "If you can get through all 3 without enjoying yourself, I'll admit you're right. Love is pointless. Marriage is a scam. Blah blah blah." Ryan stared at her, half amused, half stunned. "That's a ridiculous bet." "Scared?" she said again, her tone sing-song. Ryan laughed. I'm not scared. I just think you're underestimating how stubborn I am. Perfect, Harper said, clapping her hands. First date Saturday. I'll text you. Ryan opened his mouth to argue, but she was already walking away, her laughter trailing behind her like a ribbon in the wind. He stood there for a long moment, watching her disappear into the night, and then shook his head, grinning despite himself. 3 dates. No problem, right? Chapter 6. Date 1, Disaster or Delight. Ryan had a plan. A simple, foolproof plan. Bowling. It was safe, neutral, and most importantly, unromantic. No candlelight, no violins, no opportunities for spontaneous declarations of love. Just rented shoes and the satisfying crash of pins. If Harper wanted 3 dates, fine. He'd give her 3 dates so boring she'd beg to call off the bet. Saturday evening. Ryan pulled into the neon glow of Lucky Strike lanes, feeling smug. Bowling was his fortress. Nothing romantic ever happened in a place that smelled faintly of shoe disinfectant. Harper was already there, leaning against the counter like she owned the place. She wore jeans, a leather jacket, and a grin that spelled trouble. Bowling? She said, arching an eyebrow as he approached. Wow, you really know how to sweep a girl off her feet. Ryan smirked. It's practical. No pressure. No drama. No fun, you mean? She winked. Don't worry. I'll fix that. Ryan frowned. What does that mean? But Harper was already at the shoe counter, chatting with the attendant like they were old friends. Ryan followed, muttering under his breath. He'd underestimated her. Again. They got their shoes, picked a lane, and Harper immediately started trash-talking. Hope you stretched, she said, tying her laces. I don't want you pulling a muscle when I destroy you. Ryan chuckled. You're confident. I'm talented, she corrected, grabbing a ball and testing its weight. And competitive. Ryan grinned. Good. So am I. The first frame went smoothly. Ryan bowled a respectable 8, Harper a solid 9. But by the third frame, things started to unravel. Harper decided the game needed spice. She announced new rules. Every gutter ball required a dramatic interpretive dance. Every strike earned the right to make the other person answer a ridiculous question. Ryan laughed, shaking his head. You're making this up as you go. Obviously, Harper said, grinning. That's what makes it fun. Ryan rolled his eyes, but when Harper bowled a strike and demanded he answer, what's your most embarrassing childhood memory? He found himself playing along. 5th grade, he said, deadpan. Talent show. I tried to moonwalk. Fell off the stage. Harper laughed so hard she nearly dropped her ball. Oh my God. Please tell me there's video. Thankfully, no, Ryan said, smirking. Your turn. By the 7th frame, Harper was winning, and Ryan was laughing more than he had in months. She was chaos wrapped in charm, and he couldn't decide if that terrified him or thrilled him. After the game, Harper insisted on celebrating her victory with milkshakes at the diner next door. Ryan agreed, mostly because he was starving, and partly because he didn't want the night to end just yet. They slid into a booth, Harper still buzzing with energy. So, she said, sipping her strawberry shake. Admit it, you had fun. Ryan smirked. It was tolerable. Liar. She pointed her straw at him. You laughed. You danced. You told me about your tragic moonwalk. Ryan chuckled. Fine. It wasn't terrible. Harper grinned. That's a win. Ryan shook his head, amused. 1 date down. 2 to go. And you're already cracking, she teased. Ryan smiled, leaning back in the booth. He told himself he was still in control, still winning. But as Harper laughed at something on the jukebox, Ryan felt a flicker of something he hadn't expected. Enjoyment. And that, he realized, was dangerous. Chapter 7. Date 2, the curveball. Ryan had expected Harper to pick something simple for their second date. Maybe coffee, maybe a movie. Something predictable. Something safe. Instead, she texted him on Tuesday, Harper. Saturday. 6 o'clock. Bring an apron. Ryan. An apron? Harper. Cooking class. Don't be late. Ryan, you're kidding. Harper. Nope. Prepare to meet your culinary destiny. Ryan stared at his phone, groaning. Cooking class? He could barely boil water without setting off the smoke alarm. But a bet was a bet, and Ryan Baker didn't back down, even when the battlefield involved sauté pans. Saturday evening, Ryan walked into Chef's Table Culinary Studio feeling like a man headed for execution. The place smelled like garlic and ambition. Counters gleamed under bright lights, and cheerful instructors in crisp white coats floated around like culinary angels. Harper was already there, tying an apron around her waist with the confidence of someone who knew what a whisk was for. She spotted Ryan and grinned. Look at you, ready to embrace your inner chef. Ryan smirked. My inner chef is hiding in the parking lot. Harper laughed, handing him an apron. Come on, it'll be fun. Define fun, Ryan muttered, slipping the apron over his head. Fun, Harper said, eyes twinkling, is watching you try to pronounce bechamel. Ryan groaned. Is that a sauce or a Pokemon? The instructor clapped her hands, announcing tonight's menu. Homemade pasta, creamy bechamel, and a dessert Ryan couldn't pronounce. Harper practically bounced with excitement. Ryan considered faking a sudden allergy to flour. They started with pasta dough. Harper kneaded like a pro, her hands moving with easy confidence. Ryan, on the other hand, looked like he was wrestling a stubborn octopus. Ryan, Harper said, laughing. You're supposed to knead it, not interrogate it. Ryan grinned. I'm establishing dominance. Over dough. She shook her head, amused. You're ridiculous. When it came time to roll the dough, Harper leaned over to help, her hands brushing his. Ryan froze for half a second, just long enough to notice the warmth of her touch, before cracking a joke to cover it. Careful, he said. If this turns into a rom-com montage, I'm walking out. Harper smirked. Too late. Cue the soft music. The bechamel was next. Ryan stared at the saucepan like it was plotting against him. So, what's the difference between bechamel and glue? Flavor, Harper said, laughing. And confidence. Ryan stirred, muttering under his breath. Confidence, right? When his sauce turned lumpy, Harper swooped in, fixing it with a flick of her wrist. See? Easy. Ryan watched her, amused. You're enjoying this way too much. Of course I am, Harper said, grinning. You're adorable when you're out of your element. Ryan chuckled. Adorable isn't the word I'd use. Fine, she teased. Heroic, like a man battling dairy. By the time dessert rolled around, Ryan was laughing so hard his cheeks hurt. Harper had flour on her nose, and he had bechamel on his sleeve, and somehow the chaos felt good, comfortable, like maybe losing this bet wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. As they sat down to eat their creations, surprisingly edible, Harper raised her glass of sparkling water. To date too, she said, smiling. And to you not burning down the kitchen. Ryan clinked his glass against hers, grinning. Small victories. Harper leaned in, her voice soft but playful. Admit it, you had fun. Ryan hesitated, then smiled. It wasn't terrible. Liar, she whispered, eyes dancing. Ryan laughed, shaking his head. 2 dates down, 1 to go. And for the first time, he wasn't sure if he wanted the bet to end. Chapter 8. The turning point. Ryan told himself the 3rd date would be easy. Simple. No flower fights, no interpretive dances in bowling alleys. Just a quiet evening walk through the park. Safe territory. Neutral ground. The kind of date where nothing unexpected could happen. He should have known better. The park was bathed in the soft glow of streetlights, their halos shimmering against the crisp night air. Snow clung to the edges of the path like frosting on a cake, and the lake reflected the moon in broken silver shards. Ryan shoved his hands into his jacket pockets, feeling oddly nervous for a man who'd spent the last 2 dates laughing like a fool. Harper was waiting near the entrance, bundled in a wool coat and a scarf that looked like it had been knitted by angels. When she saw him, her smile was instant, bright enough to make the cold feel less sharp. Look at you, she teased, falling into step beside him. Mr. Outdoorsy. Ryan smirked. Don't get used to it. I'm allergic to nature. Sure you are, Harper said, her breath puffing in little clouds. You look like you belong in a hiking commercial. Ryan chuckled. Only if the commercial ends with me calling an Uber. They walked in easy silence for a while, the crunch of snow underfoot filling the gaps. Ryan found himself stealing glances at Harper, at the way her hair caught the light, at the way her laughter seemed to linger even when she wasn't speaking. He told himself it was just curiosity, just observation, but deep down he knew better. So, Harper said suddenly, breaking the quiet. 3 dates. How am I doing? Ryan grinned. You're persistent. That's not an answer. He shrugged. You're not terrible. Harper laughed, shaking her head. You really can't admit you're having fun? Can you? Ryan smirked. I'm enjoying the scenery. Aha. She nudged him playfully. You know, for someone who claims to avoid drama, you're pretty dramatic. Ryan chuckled. I'm not dramatic. I'm cautious. Cautious? Harper repeated, her tone softening. Because of what happened with your parents? Ryan stiffened slightly, surprised. You remember that? Of course I do, she said gently. You told me at the coffee shop. About your mom and dad. Ryan exhaled, his breath fogging in the cold. Yeah, that kind of sticks with you. Harper nodded, her expression thoughtful. I get it. My last relationship ended with me wondering if I was even lovable. So, yeah, I have my own baggage. Ryan glanced at her, something shifting in his chest. Vulnerability wasn't his strong suit, but Harper made it feel safe. Like he could hand her the truth and she wouldn't break it. I don't hate women, he said quietly. I just don't trust easily. I don't hate men, Harper replied, her voice just as soft. I just don't trust easily either. They walked on, the silence now heavier but not uncomfortable. It was the kind of silence that said more than words ever could. When they reached the lake, Harper stopped, looking out at the moonlit water. You know, she said, her breath curling like smoke. I think trust isn't about never getting hurt. It's about deciding someone's worth the risk. Ryan stared at her, the words sinking deep, Worth the risk. He'd spent years building walls, stacking bricks of caution and cynicism. And now here was Harper, laughing, teasing, challenging him. And for the first time, Ryan wondered if those walls were keeping him safe or keeping him lonely. He smiled, slow and genuine. You might be dangerous. Harper grinned, her eyes sparkling. You might be right. They walked back in silence, but it wasn't the same silence as before. It was charged, humming with something Ryan couldn't quite name. Something that felt like the beginning of a story he hadn't planned to write. And for the first time in a long time, Ryan didn't want to be the author of his own ending. He wanted to see where this chapter led. Chapter 9. The Confession. Ryan wasn't sure when the silence between them had started to feel like a conversation. Maybe it was during that walk by the lake, when Harper's words, worth the risk, lodged themselves in his chest like a stubborn splinter. Or maybe it was now, sitting across from her in a quiet corner booth at the Lantern, a cozy little restaurant that smelled like rosemary and second chances. Harper stirred her tea, her eyes flicking up to meet his. You've been quiet, she said softly. That's not your usual style. Ryan smirked, trying to shake off the weight pressing against his ribs. I'm thinking. Dangerous, she teased, but her smile didn't quite reach her eyes. What about? Ryan hesitated. He could deflect, crack a joke, keep things light. That was his default setting, laugh it off, move on. But something about Harper made him want to turn the dial to honest, even if it scared the hell out of him. I don't trust easily, he said finally, his voice low. You know that. Harper nodded, waiting. Ryan exhaled, his fingers tracing the rim of his glass. When I was 17, my mom cheated on my dad, kicked him out, made him keep paying for the house he couldn't live in. I watched him break, not just lose his marriage, lose himself. And I swore I'd never give anyone that kind of power over me. Harper's expression softened, her eyes warm and steady. Ryan. He shook his head, forcing a laugh that didn't quite land. I know it sounds cynical, but half my friends are divorced before 30. It's like a cage match out there. And the laws? They're brutal. Marriage feels like financial Russian roulette. Harper didn't flinch. She didn't argue. She just listened. And somehow that made Ryan want to keep talking. I'm not bitter, he said quietly. I'm happy. I like my life. I just don't want to gamble everything on someone deciding they're not happy anymore. For a moment, Harper said nothing. Then she reached across the table, her fingers brushing his, not grabbing, not demanding, just a touch that felt like an invitation. I get it, she said softly. I really do. My last relationship? 3 years. I thought he was the one. Turns out, he thought I was temporary. Ryan frowned. Temporary? Harper's laugh was brittle. He said he wasn't ready for forever, which was funny, because he was ready for forever with someone else 2 months later. Ryan's jaw tightened. That's brutal. Yeah. Harper shrugged, but her eyes were bright with something raw. So, trust? Yeah, it's hard for me too. Ryan stared at her, the weight of her words settling between them like a fragile truce. Two people, both scarred, both cautious, sitting in a booth that suddenly felt like neutral ground. You know what's crazy? Harper said, her voice lighter now, like she was trying to pull them back from the edge. We're both terrified of getting hurt, and yet here we are on date 3. Ryan chuckled, the sound rough but real. Guess we're both bad at bets. Harper smiled, her fingers still resting against his. Or maybe we're both worth the risk. Ryan looked at her, really looked at her, and for the first time in years the walls he'd built didn't feel like protection. They felt like prison bars. And maybe, just maybe, he was ready to break out. Chapter 10. The Interruption. Ryan had been riding a strange wave of calm ever since that night at the Lantern. It wasn't that his fears had vanished. He still had a mental spreadsheet of reasons why relationships were risky, but Harper had a way of making those reasons feel smaller. Less like iron bars, more like speed bumps, which was why, when his phone buzzed on Sunday morning with a text from his mother, Ryan felt the universe laughing at him. Mom, lunch today? I made your favorite. Ryan, sure. Noon? Mom, perfect. Bring your new girlfriend. Ryan froze mid-sip of coffee. Girlfriend? He hadn't said a word about Harper. Not to his mom. Not to anyone. He typed back quickly. Ryan, what girlfriend? Mom, Gloria saw you at the cooking class with a very pretty brunette. Word travels fast, honey. Ryan groaned. Gloria, the neighborhood gossip with the stealth of a ninja and the discretion of a foghorn. He considered lying, but his mom had a sixth sense for that sort of thing. He typed, Ryan, she's not my girlfriend. Just a friend. Mom, bring her anyway. I want to meet the woman who got you into an apron. Ryan stared at the screen, muttering, I'm doomed. By noon, Ryan was pulling into his mother's driveway with Harper in the passenger seat, laughing at his expression. Relax, she said, grinning. It's lunch, not a tribunal. You don't know my mom, Ryan muttered. She's intense. Harper smirked. I can handle intense. Ryan shot her a look. You say that now. The moment they walked in, Ryan's mother swooped down like a hawk spotting prey. Ryan, she cried, hugging him before turning her laser gaze on Harper. And you must be Harper. Harper smiled warmly. Nice to meet you, Mrs. Baker. Oh, call me Linda, his mom said, ushering them inside. Come in, come in. Gloria told me you're a writer. Romantic comedies, was it? Ryan groaned inwardly. Harper, of course, grinned. That's right. Linda clasped her hands like she just discovered a rare gemstone. How wonderful. Maybe you can talk some sense into my son. He thinks marriage is a scam. Ryan closed his eyes. Mom. Oh, don't mom me, Linda said, waving him off. He announced it at my coffee group like it was breaking news. Nearly gave Gloria a heart attack. Harper laughed, settling into a chair. Well, I can't promise to change his mind, but I do enjoy a good debate. Ryan shot her a look that said traitor, but Harper just winked. Lunch was a circus. Linda and her friends, because of course Gloria had shown up just to say hi, peppered Harper with questions like she was on a talk show. So, Harper, Gloria said, leaning forward. What do you think about marriage? Harper smiled sweetly. I think it's great, for people who want it. Linda pounced. And you? Do you want it? Ryan nearly choked on his iced tea. Mom, Harper laughed, unfazed. Someday, maybe, but right now, I'm more interested in good company and good food. Linda beamed. Well, you've got both today. Ryan muttered. Debatable. Earning a kick under the table from Harper. By the time they escaped to the car, Ryan was half convinced his mother had already started planning a wedding. Harper, of course, was grinning like she just won a game. That was fun, she said, buckling her seatbelt. Ryan stared at her. Fun? That was an ambush. Harper shrugged. Your mom's sweet. And Gloria? Hilarious. Ryan groaned. You're enjoying this way too much. Harper smirked. Of course I am. Watching you squirm is my new favorite hobby. Ryan laughed despite himself, shaking his head. You're dangerous. Harper grinned. You keep saying that like it's a bad thing. Ryan glanced at her, something warm settling in his chest. Dangerous or not, he wasn't sure he wanted to stop. Chapter 11. The big question. Ryan had always thought happiness was a solo sport. No teammates, no referees, no one to bench you when you missed a shot. Just you, your goals, and the wide-open field of life. But lately, he'd been wondering if maybe, just maybe, he'd been playing the wrong game. It hit him on a Tuesday night, sitting on his couch with a beer in hand and Harper's laughter echoing in his head like a favorite song. He wasn't even with her. She just texted him a meme about men who fear commitment, featuring a raccoon clutching a trash can. Ryan had laughed so hard he nearly spilled his drink. And then he'd stopped laughing, because the truth hit him like a bowling ball to the gut. He was happy. Really happy. And not because he was single. Because of her. The realization sat heavy on his chest, equal parts thrilling and terrifying. Ryan had spent years building a fortress around his heart, stacking bricks of logic and caution until nothing could get through. But Harper hadn't stormed the gates. She just wandered in, laughing, teasing, tossing flour in his face, and somehow making him forget why he'd built the walls in the first place. He stared at his phone, her name glowing on the screen like a dare. He could ignore it, keep things casual, pretend the bet was just a game. But the thought of losing her, of letting her walk away when the third date was technically done, made his stomach twist. Ryan Baker didn't twist. He didn't do knots. He didn't do uncertainty. Until now. The next day, he found himself driving to Harper's apartment with no plan except don't screw this up. He rehearsed lines in his head, funny ones, serious ones, even a dramatic, I choose you. That sounded like a Pokemon reference. Nothing felt right. By the time he knocked on her door, his brain was a dumpster fire of bad ideas. Harper opened the door, her hair in a messy bun, wearing an oversized hoodie that said trust me. I'm hilarious. Ryan almost laughed, because of course she was. Ryan, she said, surprised. Hey, what's up? Ryan took a breath. I need to ask you something. Her eyebrows lifted. Okay. He stepped inside, his heart pounding like he'd just run a marathon. The bet's over. 3 dates. You win. Harper smiled, amused. I know. So what's the verdict? Was it torture? Ryan shook his head, his voice low and steady. No. It was the best time I've had in years. Harper blinked, her smile faltering. Ryan, I don't want it to end, he said, the words tumbling out now, raw and unpolished. I don't want this to be a bet anymore. I want it to be real. For a moment, Harper just stared at him, her eyes wide, her breath caught. Then, slowly, her lips curved into a smile that made Ryan feel like the ground had shifted beneath his feet. Finally, she whispered, her voice soft but teasing. Took you long enough. Ryan laughed, relieved, exhilarated, maybe even a little terrified. But for the first time in years, the fear didn't feel like a warning. Felt like a challenge. And Ryan Baker had never backed down from a challenge. Chapter 12. The Leap. Ryan had never been the grand gesture type. He wasn't the guy who showed up with roses or serenaded anyone under a window. But as he drove home after confessing to Harper, his mind buzzed with one thought. If I'm going to do this, I need to do it right. Not marriage. Not yet. Maybe not ever. But something that said, I'm in. I'm not running. I'm choosing you. 2 days later, Harper was curled up on her couch, editing a chapter for her latest rom-com when her phone buzzed. Ryan, be ready at 6. We're something warm. No questions. Harper, mysterious. I like it. Ryan, good. See you soon. At 6 sharp, Ryan pulled up in his truck, grinning like a man with a secret. Harper climbed in, her curiosity practically vibrating. Where are we going? She asked. Ryan smirked. You'll see. They drove out of town, past snow-dusted fields and winding roads, until Harper spotted twinkling lights ahead. When Ryan parked and led her down a path, her breath caught. It was an outdoor skating rink, empty except for a string of fairy lights draped across the trees, casting a golden glow on the ice. A small fire pit crackled nearby, and a thermos sat on a bench like a promise. Harper turned to him, eyes wide. You did this. Ryan shrugged, suddenly feeling shy. Figured if I'm going to break my own rules, I might as well do it with style. Harper laughed, her voice soft and warm. Ryan Baker, are you trying to sweep me off my feet? Ryan grinned. Technically, the ice will do that. They laced up skates and stepped onto the rink, wobbling like newborn deer. Harper teased him mercilessly every time he flailed, and Ryan countered with dramatic spins that ended in near collisions. Their laughter echoed under the lights, mingling with the crackle of the fire and the quiet hum of winter. Halfway through, Harper stopped, her cheeks flushed, her breath curling in the cold. Why this? She asked softly. Why tonight? Ryan looked at her, his heart pounding. Not with fear this time, but with something bigger, something that felt like freedom. Because I wanted you to know, he said, his voice steady. I'm not afraid anymore. Not of you. Not of this. Harper blinked, her eyes shimmering. Ryan. He stepped closer, his hands finding hers, warm even through the gloves. I can't promise forever. I can't promise marriage. But I can promise this. I want you. I want us. No bets. No walls. For a moment, Harper just stared at him, her breath hitching. Then she smiled, the kind of smile that could melt glaciers, and whispered, finally. Ryan laughed, pulling her into a hug that felt like home. The fire crackled, the lights glowed, and for the first time in years, Ryan Baker wasn't thinking about what he might lose. He was thinking about everything he just found. Chapter 13. The Happy Chaos. Ryan Baker had always believed life was the longest thing you'd ever do, so you might as well enjoy the ride. But as he stood in Harper's kitchen 2 weeks later, covered in flour again, laughing so hard his ribs hurt, he realized something. The ride was a hell of a lot better with someone in the passenger seat. It started with Harper's idea for a celebratory dinner. Ryan had pictured takeout and Netflix. Harper pictured homemade pizza and a playlist titled Songs to Cook Badly To. The result? A culinary disaster that could have been classified as a natural hazard. Ryan! Harper shrieked, laughing as he tried, and failed, to flip the dough without launching it across the room. It landed on the fridge with a sad splat. Ryan doubled over, wheezing. It's modern art. Harper wiped tears from her eyes. You're hopeless. Hopelessly talented, Ryan corrected, peeling the dough off the fridge like it was a crime scene. Hopelessly something? Harper muttered, grinning as she sprinkled cheese like confetti. By the time the pizza emerged from the oven, slightly charred, but edible, they were sitting on the floor, sharing a bottle of wine and laughing about everything. The trivia night, the cooking class, the skating rink, even the ambush lunch with his mom. Gloria still texts me, Harper said, smirking. She wants updates. Ryan groaned. Of course she does. She's probably drafting a wedding hashtag. Harper raised an eyebrow. Hashtag Harper and Ryan forever? Ryan laughed. Hashtag Ryan panics at the altar. Harper snorted wine through her nose, and Ryan thought, God, I love this woman. The realization hit him like a sucker punch, but in the best way. He didn't say it out loud. Not yet, but he felt it, deep and certain. Later, as they curled up on the couch, Harper resting her head on his shoulder, Ryan stared at the ceiling and thought about everything he'd feared. Loss, betrayal, the brutal cage match of modern love. And then he thought about Harper's laugh, her stubborn optimism, the way she'd cracked his walls without even trying. He wasn't cured of caution. He wasn't suddenly ready to sprint down an aisle. But he was ready for this, for her, for the messy, unpredictable, beautiful chaos of loving someone without losing himself. Harper shifted, her voice sleepy but teasing. So, Mr. Anti-Marriage? What's next? Ryan smiled, pressing a kiss to her hair. Next, we finish this terrible pizza. Then we see where the ride takes us. Harper murmured something that sounded like approval, and Ryan closed his eyes, feeling the kind of peace he hadn't known in years. No bets, no walls, just two people, laughing their way through the longest thing they'd ever do, together.